Chapter 1. The Unwanted Bond. The Galactic Summit. In the heart of the sprawling Galactic Union Embassy, representatives of hundreds of species gathered in the expansive Unity Hall. The air buzzed with tension and unease. The summit's topic, a controversial alliance between the Thraxan sovereignty, a militaristic alien empire, and the Galactic Union, was polarizing. But the real focus of the gathering was the Thraxan princess, Ari Vrenhal, who stood at the center of the debate. Ari was no ordinary royal. Born blind and partially paralyzed in her lower limbs, her appearance was striking yet alien. She had smooth, iridescent skin that shimmered faintly under the hall's lights, her long, flowing hair resembling cascading silver threads. Her pale lavender eyes were sightless, but they radiated a haunting beauty. To the Thraxans, her disabilities were a source of deep shame. Many considered her unworthy of her title, let alone capable of fulfilling her duties as a future leader. The Galactic Union had proposed a bonding program, a cultural exchange that paired individuals from different species to foster unity and cooperation. Bonded pairs would undergo a deep neural link, allowing them to share thoughts, emotions, and experiences. For the Thraxans, bonding was a sacred act, a union of minds that was both personal and strategic. Yet no one had volunteered to bond with Ari. The silent outcast. Ari sat at the edge of the hall, her slender fingers tracing the intricate patterns carved into her hover chair. The murmurs of disdain from the crowd reached her sensitive ears. Her body might have been fragile, but her hearing was sharp, and every whispered insult pierced her like a dagger. "She's useless," a Thraxan noble muttered to his companion. "No one will bond with a broken princess." Ari clenched her fists, her face betraying no emotion. She had long since learned to bury her pain behind a mask of stoicism. "Princess Ari," a voice called out, interrupting the low hum of conversation. It was Counselor Rhine, a stern yet fair leader from the Galactic Union. "Your people have requested a bonding partner. Have you selected anyone?" Ari hesitated. The truth was, no one had stepped forward. Her people's disdain for her had left her isolated, even in a room filled with potential allies. Before she could respond, a commotion erupted near the entrance of the hall. A human man entered, his confident stride and disheveled appearance drawing curious glances. He wore a worn-out jacket over a utility suit, his boots scuffed from years of wear. His name was Ethan Drake, a freelance engineer and occasional pilot who had stumbled into the summit entirely by accident. An unlikely volunteer. Ethan had no intention of attending the summit. He'd been delivering supplies to the embassy when a mix-up with his credentials had landed him in the Unity Hall. Now, he found himself at the center of a tense diplomatic gathering. "What's going on?" Ethan whispered to a nearby attendant. "The Thraxan princess requires a bonding partner," the attendant replied. "But no one has volunteered." Ethan frowned, his gaze shifting to the figure in the hover chair. There was something about her, an air of quiet strength beneath her composed exterior. He didn't understand the nuances of Thraxan culture, but he recognized loneliness when he saw it. Before he could second-guess himself, Ethan raised his hand. "I'll do it." The hall fell silent. Hundreds of eyes turned to him, their expressions ranging from shock to disbelief. Ari's head tilted slightly, her sensitive ears picking up Ethan's voice. "You would bond with me?" she asked, her tone measured but laced with curiosity. Ethan shrugged. "Why not? I don't see anyone else stepping up." The murmurs started again, louder this time. A human bonding with a Thraxan princess? And not just any princess, but one considered unworthy by her own people? "Human," a Thraxan noble sneered, stepping forward. "Do you understand what bonding entails? It is not a mere gesture of goodwill. It is a sacred connection, one that requires strength and discipline." "I think I can handle it," Ethan said calmly, meeting the noble's gaze without flinching. Counselor Rhine raised a hand to silence the crowd. "Ethan Drake, are you certain of your decision? Once the bonding process begins, it cannot be undone." Ethan glanced at Ari, who remained silent, her expression unreadable. "Yeah," he said. "I'm sure." The first connection. The bonding ceremony was held later that evening in a secluded chamber of the embassy. Ethan stood at the center of the room, feeling out of place amidst the ornate decorations and glowing Thraxan glyphs. Ari was brought in, her hover chair gliding silently across the floor. She wore a flowing gown that shimmered like starlight, her sightless eyes fixed ahead. "Are you ready?" she asked, her voice softer now, almost vulnerable. Ethan nodded. "As ready as I'll ever be." The bonding device, an intricate structure of crystalline tendrils, was lowered over their heads. As the machine activated, Ethan felt a strange warmth envelop him. His mind was pulled into a sea of light and sound, a kaleidoscope of emotions that weren't his own. For the first time, he glimpsed Arai's world, her pain, her isolation, her longing to be seen as more than her disabilities. It was overwhelming, but it was also beautiful. Arai, in turn, felt Ethan's determination, his empathy, and his unshakable belief in the value of every individual. It was unlike anything she had ever experienced. When the process was complete, they both opened their eyes, their connection solidified. "How do you feel?" Ethan asked. Arai hesitated, a faint smile tugging at her lips. For the first time, not alone. A storm of reactions. The news of their bonding spread quickly, igniting a firestorm of controversy. Thraxan nobles decried the union as an insult to their traditions, while human representatives questioned Ethan's qualifications. But amidst the chaos, Arai and Ethan found themselves drawn closer together. In the days that followed, they began to learn from each other. Ethan helped Arai navigate the physical challenges of her disabilities, building custom devices to enhance her mobility. In return, Arai shared her knowledge of Thraxan culture and history, revealing the depths of her intellect and wisdom. As their bond deepened, so too did their understanding of the challenges they faced. The Galactic Union's alliance with the Thraxans was tenuous, and factions within both groups sought to undermine it. Ethan and Arai quickly realized that their union was more than just a personal connection. It was a symbol of unity in a divided galaxy. Chapter 2. Trials of the Bond. A divided galaxy. The news of the bond between Ethan Drake and Princess Arai Vrenhal swept through the Galactic Union like a solar storm, sparking debates, outrage, and even cautious hope. For the Thraxans, a fiercely proud and traditional people, the idea of their princess bonding with a human species they considered inferior was unthinkable. For humanity, Ethan's impulsive act was seen as reckless and unprecedented. Arai and Ethan were thrust into the spotlight, their every move scrutinized by both supporters and detractors. The Galactic Union Council called for a series of trials to prove whether their bond could truly serve as a bridge between their species, or if it was a mistake destined to collapse under the weight of expectation. The Council's ultimatum. The Council chamber was a grand, circular room filled with representatives from dozens of species. The air buzzed with tension as Councillor Rhine stood to address the assembly. "Ethan Drake and Princess Arai," she began, her voice calm but firm. "Your bond has stirred great controversy. While some see it as a step toward unity, others view it as an affront to tradition. To settle this matter, the Council has decided to subject you to the trials of convergence." Ethan leaned toward Arai, whispering, "I'm guessing that's not as fun as it sounds." Arai's sightless eyes turned toward him, her expression unreadable. "The trials are meant to test the strength of a bond, not just its emotional depth, but its ability to withstand external pressures. They are not easy." Councillor Rhine continued, "You will face 3 challenges, each designed to measure your compatibility, resilience, and ability to work as a unified team. If you fail, your bond will be nullified, and the alliance between humanity and the Thraxans will be in jeopardy." Ethan straightened, his jaw tightening. "All right, we'll do it. Whatever it takes." Arai nodded, her voice steady. "We accept." The chamber erupted into murmurs, the reactions ranging from approval to outrage. Ethan glanced at Arai, his resolve firm. "We've got this," he said quietly. "I hope you're right," she replied, her tone softer than usual. "Because if we fail, it won't just be us who suffers." Trial 1. The Labyrinth of Unity. The first trial took place in a massive, holographic simulation chamber. The walls shimmered with light as the environment shifted, transforming into a sprawling labyrinth of twisting corridors and shifting walls. The task was simple: navigate the labyrinth together and reach the center. The catch? The labyrinth was designed to exploit their weaknesses and force them to rely on each other. Ethan and Arai stood at the entrance, the holographic walls towering over them. "You ready for this?" Ethan asked, glancing at her. "As ready as I can be," ARI replied. She hesitated before adding, "I'll need your guidance. My blindness will make this challenging." Ethan gave her a reassuring smile. "Don't worry, I've got you." As they entered the labyrinth, the walls began to shift, creating new paths and blocking old ones. The air buzzed with strange sounds, and holographic projections of obstacles appeared: pitfalls, moving platforms, and even simulated predators. Ethan quickly realized that the labyrinth wasn't just testing their physical abilities, it was testing their communication. Every step required coordination, every turn demanded trust. "Step to your left," Ethan instructed as they approached a series of moving platforms. "Wait for my signal, then move forward." Ria hesitated, her fingers gripping the armrest of her hover chair. "How can you be sure it's safe?" "Because I'm watching your back," Ethan said firmly. "Trust me." After a moment, Ria nodded. She followed his instructions, her movements precise and controlled. Together, they navigated the platforms, their teamwork growing stronger with each obstacle. Facing their fears. Midway through the labyrinth, the simulation introduced a new challenge: projections of their deepest fears. For Ethan, it was a collapsing starship, a vivid reminder of a crash that had killed his crew years ago. For Ria, it was a crowd of faceless Thraxans, their voices filled with disdain and rejection. Ethan froze as the holographic starship loomed over him, the sound of twisting metal and panicked screams filling his ears. His breathing quickened, memories flooding his mind. "Ethan," Ria said, her voice cutting through the chaos. "Stay with me. It's not real." He turned to her, her calm presence grounding him. "I'm fine," he said, though his voice wavered. Ria reached out, her hand brushing his arm. "No, you're not. But you don't have to face it alone." Ethan took a deep breath, focusing on her steady voice. Together, they pushed through the projections, their bond growing stronger with each step. Reaching the center. After hours of navigating the labyrinth, they finally reached the center, a glowing pedestal that marked the end of the trial. The chamber dissolved into its original state, and the council observed from their seats. Counselor Ryan nodded approvingly. "You have passed the first trial. Your ability to work together and support each other is commendable. But the next trial will be even more demanding." Ethan glanced at Ria, a small smile tugging at his lips. "One down, 2 to go." She returned his smile, though her expression remained serious. "Let's hope we're as successful in the next one." Trial 2. The Test of Sacrifice. The second trial tested their willingness to make sacrifices for each other. Ethan and Ria were placed in separate chambers, each faced with a difficult choice: endure pain to save the other from harm, or choose self-preservation at the cost of the other's suffering. Ethan's chamber was stark and empty, except for a glowing panel that displayed Ria's vitals. A voice filled the room, cold and mechanical. "To ensure her safety, you must endure the neural shock." Ethan didn't hesitate. "Do it." The pain was immediate and excruciating, a surge of electricity coursing through his body. He clenched his teeth, his fists balling at his sides. Through the haze of agony, he thought of Ria and the trust she had placed in him. He wouldn't let her down. Meanwhile, in her chamber, Ria faced a similar choice. The voice informed her that Ethan's life was at risk, and the only way to save him was to endure a simulated attack on her already fragile body. "I'll do it," she said without hesitation. As the pain racked her body, she focused on Ethan, his determination, his kindness, his unwavering belief in her. When the trial ended, they were reunited, both pale and trembling but alive. Ethan gave her a shaky grin. "You all right?" "I should be asking you that," Ria replied, her voice soft but steady. Counselor Ryan observed them, her expression unreadable. "Your willingness to endure for each other is remarkable, but the final trial will push you to your limits." Chapter 3. The Final Trial. A Test of Unity. The anticipation in the Galactic Union Council chamber was palpable as Ethan and Ria prepared for the third and final trial. The stakes had never been higher. The first trial had tested their coordination and trust, while the second had proven their willingness to sacrifice for each other. Now, The trial of unity would determine whether their bond could withstand the harshest external pressures and the deepest personal challenges. Counselor Rhine addressed the assembly, her voice echoing through the grand chamber. Ethan Drake and Princess Ari Vrenhal, the final trial is a test of unity under duress. You will face a simulated scenario designed to exploit your weaknesses, tempt your selfish instincts, and test your ability to act as one. Success will prove your bond is strong enough to serve as a symbol of alliance. Failure will nullify your bond and jeopardize this diplomatic endeavor. Ethan glanced at Ari, her sightless lavender eyes fixed ahead. "We've got this," he said softly. Ari turned her head slightly, her expression serene yet resolute. "Then let us face it together." The descent into chaos. The trial took place in a massive simulation chamber designed to mimic the environment of a crumbling space station. The walls were cracked and sparking, fires raged in the distance, and the sound of groaning metal echoed through the air. The simulation felt disturbingly real. The voice of the council resonated through hidden speakers. "Your objective is to escape the station before its reactor goes critical. Along the way, you will encounter obstacles designed to test your unity. Only by working together can you survive." The moment the trial began, the floor beneath them shuddered, and a massive explosion rocked the station. Ethan instinctively grabbed Aria's hand, guiding her away from falling debris. "Stay close to me," he shouted over the chaos. "I can manage," she replied, though her fingers tightened around his. "Just tell me where to go." They navigated the station's labyrinthine corridors, their progress hindered by blocked passages, hostile drones, and environmental hazards. Every step required coordination. Ethan called out directions and cleared obstacles while Aria used her heightened senses to detect dangers he couldn't see. "Duck!" she cried, pulling Ethan down just as a burst of energy from a malfunctioning console shot over his head. "Thanks," he said, flashing her a grin. "Good thing one of us knows what they're doing." Aria allowed herself a faint smile. "Let's keep moving." Division in the ranks. As they progressed, the simulation introduced a new challenge: conflicting objectives. A holographic display lit up in the corridor ahead, showing two routes. One led to the escape pod bay, but it required venturing through a heavily damaged section of the station. The other led to the reactor core, where a group of simulated survivors awaited rescue. The voice of the council returned. "You must choose. Will you prioritize your own survival, or risk everything to save others?" Ethan's brow furrowed as he studied the display. "We don't have time to do both." Aria tilted her head, her expression contemplative. "The reactor core will be dangerous, but leaving those survivors to perish is unacceptable." "And if we don't make it out in time?" Ethan asked, his tone cautious. "What good is saving them if we die too?" She turned toward him, her voice calm but firm. "I trust in our abilities. We can do this, Ethan." For a moment, the tension between them was palpable. But as Ethan looked into her sightless eyes, he saw unwavering determination. He sighed, his resolve hardening. "All right, let's save them." A race against time. The path to the reactor core was treacherous. Fires raged through the corridors, and collapsing beams blocked their way at every turn. Ethan used his strength to clear the debris, while Aria's keen hearing guided them around hidden dangers. When they reached the core, they found a group of holographic survivors trapped behind a sealed bulkhead. The reactor, a massive, pulsating sphere of energy, loomed ominously nearby, its containment field flickering. Ethan examined the bulkhead's control panel. "I can override this, but it'll take a minute." "Cover me." Tharai nodded, her hands glowing faintly with a bioluminescent energy unique to her species. As hostile drones descended upon them, she unleashed bursts of energy that disrupted their circuits, buying Ethan the time he needed. "Got it!" he shouted as the bulkhead opened, releasing the survivors. "Now let's get out of here." The survivors followed them as they retraced their steps, but the station's condition was deteriorating rapidly. Explosions shook the walls, and the air filled with acrid smoke. "We're not going to make it," one of the survivors cried. "Yes, we will," Ethan said through gritted teeth. "Keep moving." The breaking point. As they neared the escape pods, a final obstacle awaited them. A massive breach in the station's hull had created a vacuum, pulling debris and anyone too close into the void of space. The only way across was a narrow, unstable bridge. We'll have to go one at a time, Ethan said, scanning the group. I'll go first and stabilize the bridge. ARI, you bring them across. ARI hesitated. You're assuming I'll be able to guide them. I know you can, Ethan said firmly. I trust you. Her sightless eyes softened, and she nodded. Be careful. Ethan crossed the bridge first, his every step causing the structure to creak ominously. Once he reached the other side, he secured the bridge as best he could. All right, send the first one over. One by one, ARI guided the survivors across. Her calm demeanor and precise instructions kept them moving despite their fear. When only she remained, the bridge began to collapse. Run! Ethan shouted, holding out his hand. ARI moved as quickly as her hover chair allowed, but the bridge gave way beneath her. Ethan lunged forward, grabbing her arm just in time. With a grunt of effort, he pulled her to safety as the remains of the bridge disappeared into the void. They collapsed onto the floor, breathing heavily. You okay? Ethan asked. Yes, ARI replied, her voice steady. Thanks to you. The verdict. When the trial ended, the simulation chamber dissolved, and they found themselves back in the council chamber. The assembly watched in silence as Counselor Rhine approached them. You have completed the trials of convergence, she said. Your actions demonstrated unparalleled unity, resilience, and selflessness. The council recognizes your bond as genuine and unbreakable. The chamber erupted into applause, though some still murmured in dissent. Ethan and ARI exchanged a glance, a sense of relief washing over them. We did it, Ethan said with a grin. We did, ARI agreed, a small smile gracing her lips. A new beginning. In the weeks that followed, Ethan and ARI became symbols of hope and unity across the Galactic Union. Their bond inspired others to look beyond prejudice and tradition, proving that strength could be found in the most unexpected places. For ARI, the bond gave her a renewed sense of purpose. No longer an outcast, she embraced her role as a leader, her wisdom and compassion shining through. For Ethan, it was a chance to make a difference, to be part of something greater than himself. As they stood together on the balcony of the embassy, overlooking the stars, Ethan turned to her. So, what's next? RIA's sightless eyes gazed ahead, her expression serene. The galaxy is vast, Ethan. Let's see what else it has in store for us. And with that, their journey began anew. Chapter 4. Unity in Adversity. The Weight of Success. The council chamber was silent as Ethan Drake and Princess ARI Vrinhal stood side by side, awaiting the final verdict. The trials of convergence had pushed them to their limits, testing not just their bond but their individual resolve. They had faced overwhelming odds, risked their lives for strangers, and proven that their partnership was built on mutual trust and respect. Now, the Galactic Union's decision would determine the future of their bond and the fragile alliance between humanity and the Thraxan sovereignty. Counselor Rhine, the arbiter of the trials, stood from her seat, her expression unreadable. Ethan Drake and Princess ARI, you have completed the trials of convergence. Your actions have demonstrated courage, selflessness, and unity under extraordinary circumstances. The murmurs of dissent among the gathered representatives quieted as she continued. The council has deliberated, and we recognize your bond is genuine and strong. The Galactic Union hereby acknowledges this union as a step forward for interspecies cooperation. The chamber erupted into applause, though a few representatives remained seated, their expressions grim. ARI tilted her head slightly toward Ethan. Is it over? She whispered. Ethan grinned, nudging her shoulder gently. We did it. Unfinished business. While their success in the trials solidified their bond in the eyes of the council, it did little to quell the unrest brewing outside the walls of the embassy. Detractors, particularly from the Thraxan sovereignty, viewed the bond as an affront to their traditions. Whispers of plots to undermine the alliance reached the ears of the Galactic Union's intelligence network. That evening, Ethan and ARI sat in a private chamber within the embassy, recovering from the trials. Ethan worked on repairing ARIA's hover chair, the delicate machinery having taken damage during the final challenge. Not bad for a day's work, Ethan said, tightening a bolt. But something tells me this isn't the end of our troubles. ARI nodded, her expression thoughtful. The trials were only the beginning. The skepticism of my people, and the prejudice of others will not disappear overnight. Ethan set down his tools, meeting her gaze. Then we'll keep proving them wrong. The threat revealed. Their resolve was soon tested when an urgent message arrived from Counselor Rhine. The Wormclaw Syndicate, a dangerous faction known for exploiting galactic unrest, had infiltrated the Thraxan sovereignty. Their goal was clear: to sabotage the Alliance and destabilize the Galactic Union. The Syndicate had targeted a key diplomatic summit scheduled to take place on Xanthoris Prime, a neutral planet where representatives from both factions would discuss the terms of their cooperation. Intelligence suggested that the Syndicate planned to unleash a powerful weapon during the summit, framing humanity and the Thraxans for the ensuing destruction. Ethan and ARIA were summoned to Rhine's office, where holographic projections of the Syndicate's plans flickered before them. "This summit is our chance to solidify the Alliance," Rhine explained. "If the Syndicate succeeds, it could unravel everything we've worked for." Ethan leaned against the table, his jaw tight. "What's the plan?" "You two," Rhine said simply. "Your bond is the cornerstone of this alliance. If you can uncover the Syndicate's plot and stop them, it will demonstrate the strength of your partnership and the alliance itself." ARI nodded without hesitation. "We will not fail." The infiltration. On Xanthoris Prime, the summit was held in a massive crystalline dome that shimmered under the planet's twin suns. Delegates from dozens of species gathered inside, their voices blending into a cacophony of negotiation and debate. Ethan and ARIA moved discreetly through the crowd, their every step watched by both allies and enemies. RIA's heightened senses guided them as they searched for signs of the Syndicate's operatives. Her fingers brushed Ethan's arm, signaling him to stop. "3 figures, near the eastern balcony," she whispered. "Their movements are too coordinated for diplomats." Ethan glanced in the indicated direction, spotting the operatives. They were humanoid but heavily cloaked, their features obscured. One of them carried a metallic case that glowed faintly. "That's gotta be it," Ethan murmured. "Let's move." A race against time. The operatives split up, disappearing into different parts of the dome. Ethan and ARIA pursued the one with the case, weaving through the crowd. RIA's hoverchair glided silently, her glowing markings dimming as she focused on tracking their target. The operative slipped into a maintenance corridor, and Ethan followed, his plasma pistol drawn. "Stay behind me," he whispered. "No," ARIA said firmly. "We do this together." Ethan sighed but nodded, knowing better than to argue. They confronted the operative in a dimly lit storage room, where he was preparing to activate the weapon. The device pulsed with unstable energy, its countdown ticking ominously. "Step away from that thing," Ethan barked. The operative sneered, drawing a blade and lunging at Ethan. The two struggled, the clash of metal echoing in the small space. Meanwhile, RI focused on the weapon, her hands glowing as she interfaced with its alien technology. "I can disable it," she said, her voice calm despite the urgency. "But I need time." "You've got it," Ethan grunted, blocking the operative's attacks with his forearm before landing a punch that sent the assailant sprawling. ARI worked quickly, her fingers dancing over the device's controls. She felt the weapon's unstable energy surge through her, threatening to overwhelm her senses. But she pushed through, guided by the connection she shared with Ethan. "I've got it," she exclaimed as the device powered down. Ethan cuffed the unconscious operative, breathing heavily. "Nice work." ARI turned to him, a rare smile on her lips. "I had a good partner." A new era. The Syndicate's plot was exposed, and the captured operatives provided valuable intelligence on their organization. The successful prevention of the attack became a turning point for the Alliance, silencing many of its critics. Back on the Galactic Union's central station, Ethan and ARI were celebrated as heroes. But amidst the accolades, they remained grounded, knowing that their work was far from over. As they stood on the station's observation deck, gazing out at the stars, Ethan glanced at ARI. "So, what now?" She tilted her head, her sightless eyes reflecting the distant starlight. "Now, we continue to prove them wrong. Together." Ethan smiled, his hand brushing against hers. "Together." And as the galaxy slowly began to shift toward unity, a human and a blind, disabled princess became a symbol of hope, proving that even in the face of adversity, bonds could be forged and worlds could be changed.